Paglayang minamahal,
Ang islap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning.
ang bituin at araw na kailan pa may di magdidilim. Ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Good morning. The meeting is now called to order.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
I move to dispense with the calling of the roll.
Second.
I second the motion.
There's a motion to dispense with the calling of the roll. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Sige. To my esteemed colleagues, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the regular meeting of the Special Committee on Land Use. Today we are meeting to discuss House Bill number 2768, the Philippine Water Channel Act, introduced by the Honorable Brian Poe. This measure addresses the problem of devastating floods by establishing clear standards for land reclamation projects. Anchored on the constitutional right to a balanced and healthful ecology, the bill proposes a mandatory minimum 200-meter waterway channel between the reclaimed land and the existing mainland or foreshore. This standard is backed by international benchmarks and scientific studies from institutions like the IHA, DELF, and the LTARIS, aimed at preventing water stagnation, mitigating odors, and ensuring proper drainage toward the sea. Our goal today, this morning, is to evaluate how this 200-meter requirement will be enforced across all proposed and approved projects throughout the country. Under this Act, agencies such as the Philippine Reclamation Authority, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and LGUs will be tasked with monitoring. We will also consider the strict accountability measures proposed, including fines and the potential revocation of permits for non-compliance. I invite our resource persons to provide their insights on how this legislation can best harmonize urban expansion with the vital protection of our marine ecosystem and public safety. So without much further ado, let us begin our discussion. Thank you for gracing us with your presence today, and welcome once again to the meeting of the Special Committee on Land Use. I would like to recognize our Vice Chair, the Honorable Franz Vincent Legaspi, and the author of this bill that we will be discussing, the Honorable Brian Poe. May I request the COMSEC to recognize our resource persons?
Good morning. I will read off the list of those who have confirmed their attendance for today. So from the Department of Science and Technology, Ms. Vilma Salak. Thank you, ma'am. From the Inland Aquatic Resources Research Division, Mr. John Benrich Zuniga, Senior Science Research Specialist, Forestry and Environment Research Division, Ms. Janet Jane Zaraza, Ms. Charmaine Angela Trilliana from Policy Action Group, And from the Philippine Reclamation Authority, Attorney Kerry Law Baluda, Attorney 3, Attorney Kenneth Fadrilan, Attorney Christian Ray Pomida, Architect Marie Herson Tagiam, and Engineer Eduardo Destura, sir. From the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, we have Mr. Jerome Semiliano, Senior Economic Development Specialist of DepDev. From the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, Mr. Ralphie Blake Barrios, the Plants Program and Policy Director. From the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, we have Attorney Carl Legis Tabaco, Mr. Luis Bibal, Mr. Rene Saldi Perlaje, Attorney Ralph Wendell Bolizer. From the UP School of Urban and Regional Planning, we have Professor and Dean of the School of Urban and Regional Planning, Professor Dina Magnaye, PhD and ENP, Assistant Professor Reynold Ferdinand Magnegdeg. Okay. From the Environmental Management Bureau, we have Engineer Christine Solo Estoy and Engineer Lennon Ramboyong. Hello. Nice to meet you. From the Department of Public Works and Highways, Attorney Ann Therese Amor Mendoza, Elisa G. Hortaleza. I missed a couple, I think, from the EMB, Miss Denise Celestial and Engineer Catherine Olivades. Okay, again from the Public Works and Highways, we have Keisha Ado. And lastly, from the Department of Interior and Local Government, Mr. Jed John Castillo and Samantha Tupal. That is all, sir.
Thank you, Comsec. Now we move to the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Congressman Pras.
Mr. Chair, I move to dispense with the reading of the previous minutes and move for its approval.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
There is a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the previous meetings and approval of the same. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Now, let's just move on. I'd like to request the representative from the Philippine Reclamation Authority to make a presentation on their mandates and operations.
Good morning, honorable members of the committee and fellow workers in government. We have here a very brief presentation, sir, in terms of what PRA is all about and what we do. PRA is a government-owned and controlled corporation created under Presidential Decree number 1084 in 1977. Next slide, please. Basically, in a nutshell, PRA is the agency that regulates all reclamations nationwide. And in the course of regulating these projects, being the representative of the state, PRA gets a share out of the reclaimed land, and thus part of the mandate is for PRA to own it, to develop it, meaning put up infrastructure to it, and then manage the estate resource of the Republic of the Philippines. There are other issuances which reinforces the mandate of the PRA. First is we have the, next slide please. Next slide. We have the Presidential Decree 3-A. This is the issuance issued then saying that illegally reclaimed lands can be forfeited by the state without need of judicial action. Meaning that lands reclaimed that didn't pass through the regulation of government through the PRA can forfeit without need of judicial processes. Next is Executive Order number 525. This is the order saying that PRA is the agency that should regulate, coordinate, and integrate all reclamation projects nationwide, and saying that PRA is, in essence, the staff of the President in the course of approving initiatives to reclaim all over the country. Next is EO 654. This is another issuance saying that PRA is classified as within the IUG group, the infrastructure and utility group of government corporations, and thus allowing it to enjoy real estate tax exemption for all its real estate properties. And yes. And then last is the current EU 74 saying that the powers of the President to reclaim is now delegated to the PRA Governing Board, subject to compliance by proponents of certain requirements which were all spelled out in the implementing rules and regulations of the EU 74, which was issued in 2019 and embodied under PRAAO 2019-4. Next slide. Briefly, this is a 6-stage process, the approval process. There's pre-qualification, there's compliance by entities that are interested to reclaim with mandatory requirements spelled out under the IRR, and there is the approval by the board, and there's the need as required for under existing laws, the need for such proposals to undergo competitive challenge. And then down the line up to the issuance of notice to proceed, and then the actual prosecution of the reclamation works. In the whole process, PRA collects certain fees. We require filing, processing, regulatory fees, sustainable environmental fees over and on top of the land shares that PRA imposes for all reclamations, especially those initiated by the private sector through unsolicited mode. And next slide. Very quickly po, these are all the requirements for the various stages of the process, and this can be viewed from the online, in the website of PRA, enumerating all the requirements for each stage of the process. Next. The bidding stage. This is, as I have said, this is one thing that existing laws requires of us, that all projects must have to be, before award, should go through a public bidding, because the sole mandate to reclaim and be in the central clearinghouse for reclamations rests with PRA, and the mandate is downloaded or transferred to any qualified entity after certain processes is accomplished by the PRA. And thereafter, after the bidding, a contract for reclamation is signed as the Bible for the implementation between government and the project initiators. So far, Mr. Chair and members of the committee and fellow workers in government, that's the PRA is all about. Further questions, we'll try our best to answer your questions, sir. Thank you.
Congressman Bayan.
Mr. Chair, I think maybe so we can move quickly, we can go through each agency that would like to speak, and then after we can have a discussion.
Okay. Move on to the initial consideration of the proposed Philippine Water Channel Act. An act requiring a sufficient waterway channel from the existing mainland or foreshore and from the proposed intended land reclamation projects under Station Republic. And this will be presented by Congressman Brian Poe. May I call Mr. Brian Poe, your sponsorship speech, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all of our colleagues who came here today from the different government agencies. I appreciate your time, and of course, our Vice Chair, thank you for being here. I rise to formally sponsor House Bill number 2768, otherwise known as the Philippine Water Channel Act. Recent reporting makes plain that our concerns are not hypothetical. They are unfolding now in communities across the country. Just the other day, an article in Philstar highlighted how reclamation projects are physically altering the shores of Laguna de Bay, impacting fisherfolk livelihood, degrading water quality, and shrinking natural water space that once supported vibrant fish populations and ecological balance. Mr. Chair, we have all heard the urgent plea of our constituents. Binabaha ng husto ang iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas, wala nang malabasan ng tubig papuntang dagat. As reclamation projects multiply, we risk constricting natural water flow and increasing flood vulnerability. This is not to say that this representation is against reclamation. I understand the value of adding land and giving our country or our cities more space to expand. However, there are solutions that would allow us to be able to reclaim land and at the same time protect the constituents who will be living in this new development. So this measure responds with a science-based safeguard, a mandatory minimum 200-meter waterway channel between any land reclamation project and the existing mainland or foreshore. This standard is not arbitrary. It is actually anchored in internationally recognized flood management principles and engineering practice. Mr. Chair, the Netherlands, one of the most flood-prone countries in the world, revolutionized its approach through the Room for the River program. Instead of merely building high barriers, the Dutch government gave the river more room by constructing secondary channels and widening floodplains. For example, authorities relocated a dike and created a channel approximately 200 meters wide to increase the discharge capacity, reduce peak water levels, and protect urban communities from catastrophic flooding. The lesson is clear. Resilience is achieved not by blocking water, but providing it space to flow freely. Other European organizations such as Deltares and the IHE, Delft Advocate for Nature-Driven Design and Nature-Based Solutions, their hydrodynamic modeling confirms that replacing rigid concrete barriers with secondary channels and lateral water space floodplains significantly reduces long-term flood risks and prevents ecological degradation. Sa madaling salita, mas okay kung gumawa tayo ng bagong water channel kesa sa gumawa tayo ng let's say landslide protection or slope protection on the side of these areas. Mr. Chair, beyond Western engineering practices, this measure is likewise consistent with the global disaster risk governance framework adopted by the international community. The United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, through the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, calls on states to invest in structural disaster risk reduction measures, embed risk considerations into the development planning, and ensure that new infrastructure does not create future hazards. Priority 3 of the Sendai Framework explicitly mandates investing in disaster risk prevention and resilience, while Priority 4 promotes building back better and constructing assets to higher standards of safety. Mr. Chair, I have a copy of the UN study as well as the aforementioned study. I will be submitting this to the committee for your perusal. Mr. Chair, the proposed 200-meter minimum channel requirement translates these globally proven principles into Philippine policy. To ensure compliance, this bill mandates coordinated oversight among the Philippine Reclamation Authority, as well as the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the concerned local government units, and it requires a periodic environmental impact assessment of every 5 years and imposes meaningful penalties beginning at 1 million pesos with escalating daily fines and possibility of imprisonment of not less than 2 years for violations. Mr. Chair, this is in direct response to the complaints that we've had of our constituents regarding the lack of proper flood control, of our constituents complaining that years later these projects fall apart or are substandard. This allows us to not only lessen the financial burden for flood control spending from government, but it also future protects the communities that will be developed in these areas. Para sa mga developers natin na mga reclamation area, pag gumagawa tayo ng water channel na 200 meters at meron tayong added security para sa area na i-develop po natin, the land value will naturally increase on its own because of the urban planning that has already been set forth. And it also mitigates the costs of both the developers as well as the government, which would have to go in and fix things later if we do not start today. Mr. Chair, habang gumagawa pa rin tayo ng mga land reclamation projects at bago pa lang po ito, meron pa rin tayong oportunidad para gumawa ng ganitong mga safeguards before we run into the same problems that we've been running into here in Metro Manila. So just to close, Mr. Chair, the Philippine Water Channel Act bridges both global best practices with local necessity. It gives our water space to move so that our communities may live safely and sustainably. With the conclusion of this manifestation, I will also submit these copies of the aforementioned studies for the benefit of the members present for their study. And for this reason, I respectfully urge the committee to support the swift passage of this measure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Po. Mayroon lang akong tanong after your presentation. How do we classify existing reclamation projects with this proposal?
So, with this proposal, Mr.
Because
Chair.
of the vested rights already.
Apo. Well, it's a healthy debate that we can have here in the committee already. Kasi yung existing reclamation projects, it may be difficult to put a 200-meter waterway in ones that already exist. However, for future reclamation projects, it may be something that will require. Personally, in this version, we would require that all existing reclamation projects would have a 200-meter waterway. However, Mr. Chair, if the body sees that this would be unwise to force the developers to put in these waterways, then we can have a discussion on that.
Because as of now, there are several reclamation projects ongoing, being constructed.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ongoing but not yet completed. If we could ask for the position of LRA regarding this, I'd be happy to hear their opinion, Mr. Chair.
Congressman Franz?
Just have a few quick questions, but I might direct them to the resource persons, Mr. Chair. If ever, would you like to get their manifestations first, and then I'll just ask at the end, if that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask our resource person, Engineer Distora, for your comment on the presentation made by Congressman Po.
First, Mr. Chair and the honorable author of the bill, I see an opportunity in the very intention of the law in terms of the punitive provision provided in the draft. If we will navigate through the whole thing, there will be a sector that will be affected by this one. I mean, answerable, that will be recipient of the punitive measure. Because if the law will impose a minimum of 200-meter channel, even prospectively, I think because there is proliferation of reclamations that did not went through the application of PRA, sir. A lot of this nationwide. But we have to weigh things. These are initiatives by small and big businesses that does contribute to gross national and gross domestic production. Meaning that the policy must have to be balanced in terms of how all these things will impact on the national production, domestic or national, by PRA, because almost all of them are ports, which are entry of various inputs to the economy, the service sector, and other businesses that thrives in the coastal areas. But the problem is, since illegally reclaimed po sila, hindi dumaan sa proseso ng scrutiny ng Central Clearinghouse, which is PRA. Now, if we're saying now that anyone that will not comply with the minimum requirement, there is the imprisonment, there is cash punishment, then it will be good for PRA also, because this will be a deterrent to those initiatives by the private sector. That's the beauty of the proposal, sir. That's why I noted here. Meaning that provision should apply to two scenarios. For those illegal, well, there will now be a law that we can invoke in our course of regulating, that you reclaim without the approval of PRA, and so you are under this section of the law. Pero doon po sa mga regular projects, we do, in the course of reviewing all these proposals, Mr. Chair and Congressman Llamanzares, tinitingnan po ng PRA lahat ng bagay tungkol sa reclamation. And going back to the very essence of the law, the proposed law, imposing a minimum channel, medyo, baka po kailangan medyo we revisit, sir, the wordings of the law, because yes, the European group are experts in this field, but in my own humble understanding of things and based on the situation in the Philippines, I think what is important is for all projects that should undergo hydrodynamic modeling. Unless, of course, that the 200 minimum channel is based on a science-based study, which we can always invoke as a good source of information. But bear in mind po that each area has its own peculiarity. And so in the planning process, mind you po, the planning process of reclamation takes years, maybe minimum of 2 years for proponents to finish all their plans. And so kasama po doon, sir, is a careful study of the hydrodynamic behavior of the project in the area, meaning how does the reclamation reacts with sea level rise, with the elements of the sea as it interacts with the hinterlands dynamics. How is the coastal ecosystem affected by the initiative? How is the coastal morphology affected by all of these are handled by a careful study, which is basically a science-based thing, the hydrodynamic modeling, and coupled with, we have a very strong Philippine environmental impact system. Yung EIS system takes care of this. What do I mean now by this? I'm not saying no to the imposition of the 200, but maybe there is a way to say it in another way, to give proponents to carefully study the option whether to go for a landlocked reclamation or an island reclamation. There are a lot of reasons, sir, that may be pointed out as benefit of doing a landlocked reclamation. One, it regulates the use of an unregulated settlement in the coastal area. In other words, the proliferation of ISF is all over the Philippines. And the example is Manila Bay. But I have to cite one success story in Manila Bay, which hopefully would help the committee understand the situation better, sir. Bacoor is a municipality in Cavite, where you have the coastal road and the Cavitex. It used to have about 4,000 settlers, 4,000 families. Can you imagine po? Assuming 4,000, average of 5, there are about 20,000 people and they have a wide septic tank of Manila Bay. Now comes the Bacoor Reclamation Project initiated by the LGU in partnership with PRA and awarded to a private sector. Come and visit the area. It has all been cleared by the ISF. Now, ano po ang implication po sa policy? The landlocked reclamation will solve in itself automatically without effort from government, because it will be, the relocation of this sector will be handled by the private sector. And so the coastal area there's automatic cleaning up. And that should be credited, sir, to the project implemented by PRA. And this is happening all over the country po. There is an initiative in Palawan to do another project where there is a colony of settlers in the coastal area. So to impose now a 200-meter could be also good environmentally. But for government to handle the solution of solving the solution of coastal settlement would be very expensive. And this is now also an opportunity for government to solve that problem through the initiation of reclamations by allowing landlocked thing. The landlocked thing can be justified of course, with full support and backing of a full-blown scientific study that should justify to PRA that doing a landlocked reclamation would be good as compared with doing an island thing. Another thing po is there's mention of flooding. Allow me po, if I may, Mr. Chair and Kong, to attempt to change the narrative in terms of the flooding aspect. Reclamation doesn't cause flooding. Let us all
May I just ask, as a layman, just like to know what is the difference between landlocked reclamation and foreshore reclamation?
Okay, sir. Mr. Chair, kung magla-landlocked reclamation tayo, sir, is alam naman po natin the public domain, the demarcation between the hinterlands and the public domain is an imaginary boundary doon sa dry land, hinterlands, at saka yung public land. As from our end, PRA, but I think the DNR also has their own definition of this boundary. The limit of the public domain starts at where the highest point of water is reached by the dagat during worst scenario. Pag umulan po, tumaas ang tubig, kahit may yun pong sa beachside, kung na-imagine po niyo yung beachside, may mga title property na dyan, pag inabot po yun ng tubig, it should be marked as the demarcation between the hinterlands and the public domain. And thereafter, papunta sa offshore, that is the beginning of the foreshore. At karamihan po yung offshore, ito yung nagpapalit na walang tubig during low tide at nagkakatubig during high tide. Pero inaabot ng sobrang tubig during inclement weather. So that is where the foreshore is. And if I may add, sir, in 2005, because of unprecedented number of lands that were reclaimed without the approval of PRA, PRA came out with an administrative order 2005-1 and eventually 2008-3 and now 2021-01. The problem po is ganito. There is a tenurial instrument issued by the DNR to Juan de la Cruz, to citizens who are interested to make use of the foreshore and offshore property or areas of the public domain. This is an instrument na binibigyan po ng 25-year, parang lease term po siya, di ba? Lease term po siya, extendable by another 25, by another 25. There is a misnomer in the interpretation of the word development. The conception, the idea of the public is that when a tenurial instrument which abuts a title property, meaning ang tenurial instrument to, kung a-applyan mo yung dagat, kailangan ikaw may-ari ng lupa sa harap ng beach. In layman's term, you have a title property sa lupa facing the beach or the dagat. That's the public domain. the CA 141, or Commonwealth Act 141, allows temporary use of that. And they were allowed to develop. Now, there was a misunderstanding that the development within the tenurial instrument, let's exaggerate for purposes of discussion, that Juan de la Cruz is given a tenurial instrument to develop yung harapan ng property niya, 10 hectares. 2 kilometers ang haba hanggang dagat. Ang daming cases na gano'n natin, nire-reclaim yung area. And that has been found out that time that the undertaking of that kind of activity within a tenurial instrument which is already ceding temporarily the use of the land by the state to a private entity is violating the mandate of PRA. Because there is filling up of the public domain na hindi dumaan sa proseso ng scrutiny ng staff ng Presidente under EO 525, which is now the subject of Mr. Author, sir, the subject of the first AO that was issued by PRA under AO 2005, this one way back in 2005. There are about 1,000 cases nationwide, and then we have to. PRA has to issue another 2008-3 and now another AO 2021-01. That is where, Mr. Chair, kung saan, sir, nagmula yung initiative ni PRA to move around the country and look at lands reclaimed without the approval of PRA, regardless of the size, whether it's a few hundred square meters or hundreds of hectares. And ang dami po niyan. We are an archipelagic country, and understandably, sir, it's difficult to curtail that appetite of the private sector because of the need precisely for business expansion, territorial expansion, and other interests by all sectors, meaning not only private sector. A lot of government now are opting to reclaim, which is a phenomenon that I think there's a need to really revisit the powers of PRA in so far as the use of the foreshore area is where reclamation is proliferated. And Mr. Author, sir, in terms of Manila Bay, there were more or less 14 projects approved in Manila Bay. Approved in the sense na up to the point of issuing a notice to proceed. I do not know how the law should be worded to make it, sir, a prospective thing, but nevertheless, in terms of the current projects that were implemented by PRA, the first project, which is soon to be completed, the SM project, the 360 project in front of the Mall of Asia, has complied with without yet that imposition of the law, has complied with the required width of the channel from the CCP, edge of the CCP to the edge of the reclamation by nag-range po yata ng 300 to 400 meters. And then, when we rationalize all the islands of all the 14 projects approved in Manila Bay, we reimposed a minimum of 200-meter channel in between islands of all the projects. So in effect po, while it will reinforce the need for that width of the channel, I'm just concerned about prospectively requiring projects in other areas where the need for hydrodynamic modeling or an in-depth scientific studies basis for implementing a channel. Yes, we need channels because we need mobility of the fisher folks and all stakeholders in the dagat. But there are also trade-offs. Like I said, doing a landlock has also a lot of benefit to government. Doing an island also has that kind another nature of benefit to government. But I think the law should weigh in which option is best suited for the purpose. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, Congressman Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the insights of the LRA. actually, in all honesty, the Philippines is quite a unique geographical, I guess, situation. No, and to his point, in terms of the wording, if you look at Section 5, I don't know if you have copies, but in Section 5, it says that this act applies to all land reclamation projects, including proposed and approved joint venture agreements throughout the Philippines. Project proponents must revise their plans to comply with updated coordinates provided by the Philippine Reclamation Authority. So there would be the involvement of the PRA, as well as the fact that this actually applies to everything that has been approved and will be approved if this law is to be passed. Now, in this bill, I didn't yet signify who would be responsible for signing off on this. I am open to the idea that not every single land reclamation project would actually really need the 200-meter waterway. However, what I do need in terms of the wording of this is an authority that would be able to say whether or not these land reclamation projects do need it. So I was thinking in possibly adding wording to this, in which the the PRA, as well as the DENR, would be responsible. Specifically in the DENR, if there's anyone from the Office of Water Management, is there anyone from the Office of Water Management present? Yes. So I was thinking that maybe we could signify that on the DENR side, it would be the OWM that would be signing off on it. Is this something that the DENR would advise, or is there another office that we can add to this wording?
Yes, Your Honor. We support the intention of the House bill, and also the intention to prevent the stagnant water, improve the water circulation, and help the flooding risk. The key point is that the coastline differ. So the fixed 200-meter rule may work in some areas, but to other areas it will not. So our recommendation is like what our colleagues from the PRA had said, that there should be a clear study on the water circulation to ensure that the flushing of water is really well. So it's like a bathtub where water comes in and comes out. So once it's plugged, there could be a stagnation, and even there is no water pollution source, the stagnation itself could be a risk and could cause lack of the dissolved oxygen that will cause fish kills and eutrophication, etc. So we support this bill. However, there should be a in-depth study. It will differ from area to area.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Congressman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is exactly why I want DENR involved, if ever, as a co-signatory, if ever there needs to be an authority to proceed with a water channel or not. Because while the PRA is to evaluate the project itself, the project may be okay, but we also have to look at the larger waterway ecosystem, from the watershed all the way down to the project itself, to see whether or not it affects the ecology of the area, and whether or not holistically the intended channel would have an adverse effect on exactly that, the environment. So we will submit wording, Mr. Chair, on how this will be improved. If I could meet with the DENR and the PRA separately, so that we can discuss the proper wording to this, I'd be very happy to do so. I understand that both of them have made valid points about there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to our flooding solution. However, of course, for the sake of putting it on the record, the spirit really here is para mabawasan natin ang mga flooding issues natin nationwide, para mabawasan yung binabayaran natin para sa mga flood control projects, to future-proof these land developments, and to review, as the PRA stated, the current existing projects, those both legally and illegally done. This bill would actually give both DENR and PRA the authority to now go around and check on all the land reclamation projects and review whether or not the population and the ecology is at risk because of either one, negligence, or two, they didn't pass through the proper processes to begin with. So this is a good bill or an opportunity for us to correct what is wrong, but also prepare for future land reclamation projects as our country continues to progress economically. As mentioned by the PRA, many of our projects are ports. Many of our projects are commercial development. And in these instances, we would definitely want to send a signal to our investors that the projects are done sustainably and that they have the proper permitting and future-proofing from government study.
Thank you. Komsik? Who will be the next? Yes, Engineer Resto.
Mr. Chair and Honorable Llamanzares, I think this is also very vital in the decision of the crafting of the final version of the law, because concerning about flooding, Mr. Chair, there is an ongoing in all coastal areas of the archipelago, the construction of seawalls. These are hard engineering. Come to think of it in a layman's view, when we construct, nothing against the kind of project, seawalls being constructed along coastlines, this aggravates and complicates the flooding. Because water doesn't flow freely. Imagine niyo po kung walang seawall yan, dirito po sa dagat. Yun pong mga runoff of the rain that interacts with the seawater enables the mix to create planktons and food for the marine areas. Ngayon ang dami pong, and the risk, Mr. Chair and Honorable Author of the law, wala pong careful study ang mga seawall na to. I wish to bring this to the attention of the committee, sir. I hope this can be tackled in this, because it impacts on the issue of flooding rather than pointing to PRA that we are causing flooding. Ulitin ko po yung, sir, when water cannot flow freely to the dagat, it's being stopped by seawall running by the kilometers. Kung ilang kilometer ang covered ng LGU, sir, then we will have problems of collecting this water to where it should fall. And it contributes to flooding. And it impacts now because napag-iisipan po si PRA na yung reclamation namin nagkukos ng flooding. Kasi a properly planned reclamation, we see to it that we do not block waterways. We do not block waterways. That's why we model. Kung yung bang reclamation mo is directly across the downstream of a huge waterway, how does the water behave there when the land is there? That is where the modeling falls, sir. And we carefully study that. The problem now is, when there is a reclamation na hindi dumaan sa PRA, then the problem that is mentioned here arises now. And lumalaki yung problema. The flooding and everything. Kaya maganda po yung punitive provision, because can you imagine now, if there are about 1,000 cases of illegal reclamations, then there are 1,000 entities answerable to the absence of a channel that the law will impose. Yan po. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond.
Okay, yes, Congressman Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The passage of this law would actually require, of course, these thousands of reclamation projects to now get checked on by the PRA, by the DENR, to make sure that they're compliant. Find out, of course, that they didn't go through the proper process, but give them an opportunity to revisit their land reclamation project and see if improvements can be made. So I believe it's a good step forward. But I'd also like, Mr. Chair, if possible, to ask for the thoughts of DPWH regarding this matter.
Yes, can we call now the DPWH representative or saan sila? Ayun.
Hi, good morning. In behalf of Attorney Ana Mendoza, who supposedly be attending this hearing, the department fully supports the intention of this House bill, and our comments and recommendation are incorporated in the position paper, which we will be submitting once signed by our secretary.
Thank you. Can we go the other resource persons? Kumsi, can you call? Sige na.
May I call on the BFAR from the Department of Agriculture, please?
From the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, BFAR. I introduce you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Our technical expert just went to the restroom. Can we proceed to the next resource person, please? Thank you.
Next, may I call on the Department of Science and Technology from Picard, I believe. Ito muna, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Congressman Francisco Matugas, distinguished representatives, fellow civil servants, ladies and gentlemen. Again, good morning. My name is Vierna G. Salak. I am the representative of the Department of Science and Technology, Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic, and Natural Resources Research and Development, or DOS-PICARD. On behalf of our Executive Director, Dr. Reynaldo V. Iborra, allow me to express our official stance as endorsed to the DOST, Office of the Secretary, and is now being facilitated for signing. The DOS-PICARD welcomes the proposed measure and recognizes its relevance for a country such as the Philippines, which is both archipelagic and highly vulnerable to climate-related hazards. However, our support is conditional upon the incorporation of science-based safeguards to ensure that fisheries and other aquatic resources are not adversely affected. We note that waterway modifications and reclamation activities can significantly alter the hydrodynamics, sediment transport, tidal exchange, and nutrient flows with potential consequences for aquatic ecosystems, fisheries productivity, and the livelihoods of coastal communities. It is therefore essential that ecological integrity and long-term resource sustainability are explicitly embedded in the measure. Moreover, while we acknowledge the intent to explicit 200-meter waterway channel provision, we respectfully note that hydrodynamic conditions are not uniform across coastal ecosystems or coastal systems, and a fixed width requirement may not fully account for site-specific factors such as depth, flow dynamics, sediment transport. To ensure these protections, we strongly recommend that the proposed measure be integrated into the National Land Use Plan, or NLUP, National Physical Framework Plan, NPFP, relevant river basin master plans, integrated coastal management frameworks, local comprehensive land use plans, CLUPs, and existing flood control master plans, while aligning with the National Climate Change Action Plan, or NCAP, and the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan. Fragmented or project-level planning may result in hydraulic constrictions, altered tidal circulation, increased upstream flood levels, and unintended downstream impacts. thus integrating the measure within the established land use, river basin, and coastal management framework is critical in promoting policy coherence, preventing maladaptation, and ensuring consistency with the national climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction, environmental protection, and sustainable development objectives. This proposal is consistent with the Council's or PICARD's long advocated ridge-to-reef approach, which emphasizes the interconnectedness of upland watershed, river systems, estuaries, and coastal and marine ecosystems. Interventions in waterways inevitably influence upstream runoff dynamics and downstream coastal processes. If properly designed and guided by hydrological, coastal engineering, and ecological science, the measure can strengthen natural water circulation, improve flood conveyance, and reduce the risk of exacerbating flood depths and drainage inefficiencies. Given the technical complexity of the hydrological and coastal ecosystem, ecosystem interaction, and coastal system interactions, science-based enforcement mechanisms are critical. In this regard, we uphold the role of the identified for the Department of Science and Technology under Section 6, Enforcement and Compliance, that is to assist in determining appropriate waterway dimensions. Several DOST agencies and councils possess the scientific and technical expertise necessary to support evidence-based planning. The Philippine Atmosphere, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, can provide the rainfall intensity data, flood frequency, and return period analysis, coupled with tidal dynamic assessment, and storm surge modeling. The Philippine Council for Industry, Energy, and Emerging Technology Research and Development, or PSURD, may contribute expertise in coastal engineering, coastal engineering research and development, hydrological modeling, and infrastructure systems analysis, while the DOST PICARD can provide science-based advice in relation to watersheds, aquatic ecosystems, fisheries productivity, and coastal resource sustainability. Again, once our official stance with our specific comments is signed, we will be endorsing this to the DOS-OSEC for proper submission to this committee. Thank you very much po at magandang araw po ulit sa ating lahat.
Thank you. Yes, Congressman Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think for the expediency also of this bill, it would be great to request from each of in Section 6, you'll see which agencies are being requested to be a part of this mandate. If we could request each of these agencies to submit a position paper on how they would like to be involved in the implementation of this law, if ever, that would be great, so that even before we go to the technical working group, this representation can already study, Mr. Chair, and put it into proper wording, so that we can save time on the back and forth as well. So, Mr. Chair, if we could require that.
Yeah. Okay, there's a request by the author of this bill for all the resource persons to submit through the COMSEC your position papers regarding this bill. So we proceed now. Would like to call on from the academe, Professor Dean of the UP School of Urban and Rural Planning.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and members of the committee. On behalf of the University of the Philippines School of Urban and Regional Planning, we are pleased to share our input to House Bill 2768. We recognize that the bill aims to replicate best practices in flood and water flow management, particularly in the Netherlands. In the early phases of the Dutch reclamation project, reclaimed lands were maintained at significantly lower groundwater tables than the surrounding higher elevation lands to keep the soil dry for agriculture and settlement. As a result, groundwater naturally flowed from the mainland toward the reclaimed areas under pressure differences, causing unintended effects such as land subsidence and reduced water availability on neighboring lands. In response, new reclamation projects installed waterways that served as buffers between the mainland and the reclaimed land. And we would like to highlight the benefits of the waterway buffers, and that would include first, flood prevention and drainage. They serve as buffer, a reservoir, during heavy rain, allowing stormwater to flow out and protecting the original coastal areas from flooding. Another benefit is on coastal protection. Wave dissipation. In some designs, the reclaimed land acts as a massive breakwater, and the channel behind it stays calm, protecting the original mainland infrastructure from storm surges and erosion. Another benefit would be on water circulation and quality. The waterway channels enable tidal flows and currents to circulate through the area. Without this natural flushing, water trapped behind reclaimed land becomes stagnant, as mentioned earlier, promoting algae blooms, foul odors, and harm to local marine life. Another benefit would be preserving ecosystems. Mangroves and marshes. It would maintain a water gap, often helps preserve existing mangroves, wetlands, or seagrasses, which provide habitats for fish and birds. And if we talk about biodiversity corridors, or the Blue Corridor, or Marine Eco Corridor, it allows light penetration and the movement of aquatic species along the original coastline. And another benefit would be on infrastructure and urban microclimate. And we talk about navigation here, where small boats, ferries, and emergency vessels can use the channel to move between the new and old districts. And another would be on benefit on the cooling effect, where large bodies of water help mitigate the urban heat island effect by cooling surrounding neighborhoods through evaporation. On the minimum 200-meter standard, it is proposed to rationalize the 200-meter standard, recognizing that different goals and uses of the water space may require different calculations, and variations in geographic conditions have to be taken into considerations. Also, to include the requirement for scientific studies, at least hydrodynamic modeling as part of risk assessment in environmental impact assessment and area clearance requirements under DNR regulations for said projects. While there are no standards for the distance between a new landmass and mainland foreshore, we have reviewed studies in terms of how this proposed 200 meters would benefit. In terms of hydrodynamic impact, we looked at the literature and we see that there is an optimal hydrodynamic impact because it maintains pre-reclamation flushing rates and that minimizes scar. In terms of navigational capacity, this proposed 200 meters would be excellent because it will be safe for large vessels and emergency maneuvering. And in terms of ecological or urban impact, the 200-meter proposal would be providing a positive impact because it will create a robust blue corridor, allowing for living shoreline engineering. The opening statement in the explanatory note that reads, "Binabaha ng husto ang iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas, wala nang malabasan ng tubig papuntang dagat." This is not only an issue about waterway between mainland and reclaimed land. Rather, it reflects a nationwide chronic failure in water channel management, in which rivers, creeks, tributaries, esteros, and natural drainage systems are severely obstructed or constricted due to widespread abuse and encroachment. The following should also be prioritized and look into this new legislative measure. Relocation of and sustainable shelter for informal settler families living in or along waterways. Cleared waterways shall be protected from reoccupation through enforcement, monitoring, and provision of adequate alternative climate resilient housing. Waterway restoration can be recommended to ensure that the bill is not just preventive, but also restorative. All affected waterways shall be rehabilitated to restore natural flow, improve water quality, and support ecological balance. On integrated flood management, this is where drainage integration is necessary with city flood systems and compliance with climate resilience standards, and this should be consistent with the national and local flood control plans. Natural vegetation buffers shall be established where feasible to enhance flood mitigation and biodiversity. It's also good to emphasize that reclamation projects shall demonstrate that the waterway channel maintains natural tidal exchange, prevents water stagnation, and protects coastal ecosystem. The proposed bill is explicit about reducing flood risk and associated environmental health hazard, but it would require clarification in terms of the use of the water accessibility terms. It is also proposed to qualify the function of the channel and how to manage the water space where competing water uses are expected. And lastly, a monitoring system shall be established to track compliance with relocation, flood management, and restoration requirements with periodic public reporting. Thank you. We have submitted this yesterday to the committee secretary. Maraming salamat po.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, I respect the position of our dean. Thank you for your input, and I think we may have read some of the same material regarding the 200-meter waterway. And I'm happy we're on the same page there. You brought up some really good points about regarding the human aspect of it, making sure that there are relocation provisions, and making sure that there is enforcement to make sure that these waterways remain clear. Because, Mr. Chair, as we've seen across the country, sometimes we do have proper urban planning in place already, and yet the enforcement of making sure that people don't go into areas which are dangerous for them is usually quite lax. And that ends up being the problem in defeating the spirit of the urban development plan that was put in place. So I completely agree with that. And I also would like to take the time to bring up the points of both this resource person as well as the previous resource person about the ecosystem of the waterways. In the same manner in which we want to be able to place these waterways, we also have to be careful about how it affects the environment. Introducing a new water body or introducing a new water channel can be positive, but if done incorrectly, could also negatively impact the ecology and the water systems. Mr. Chair, when I was taking my Master's in National Security, my focus for my dissertation was on water management. And so studying everything from the watershed all the way down to the mangroves, you see how the interconnectedness of different waterways is very important. Introducing a new waterway and not aligning with the current water management systems could be detrimental to the community. So definitely we can put it into writing in during the technical working groups how we will monitor this with the help of DENR. My only hesitation also here is that with so many studies being required to determine whether or not kailangan ng waterway or paano i-implement yung paggagawa ng waterway, natatakot ako na baka masyadong maraming red tape for our private sector who would like to develop these areas. So I hope that before we go into the technical working group, sana po yung position papers natin would be able to address the red tape concern, how we can streamline these necessary, regulatory measures. No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congressman Brian. We move on. I would like to call our resource person from BIPAR, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Please introduce and make your presentation.
Yeah, good morning, the Honorable Chair and member of the Special Committee. I am Rene Zaldi Porlay on behalf of our National Director, Sir Salilig. Please allow me to read the general position paper of the Bureau. The Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources submits position on House Bill number 2768 entitled An Act Requiring a Sufficient Waterway Channel from the existing mainland or foreshore and from proposed intended land reclamation projects. This Bureau fully supports the laudable intent to enact legislation, Philippine Water Channel Act, imposing minimum waterway channel requirements for the reclamation. It also recognizes the urgent need to address the environmental risk tied to land reclamation, specifically water stagnation, flooding, and habitat loss of aquatic species. The House Bill proposes a mandatory minimum of 200-meter waterway channel between reclaimed land and existing mainland or foreshore. However, just like the earlier concern of the PRA, this Bureau believes that to truly protect our waters, there is a need to move away from one-size-fits-all formula and instead require the specific hydrodynamic modeling, environmental impact assessments that also focus on fisheries, and stronger protection for municipal fishing grounds. Without these safeguards, there would be irreversible damage to the marine environment and to the livelihoods of our fisher folk. Hence, the country's food security will be adversely affected. As an archipelagic nation, food security and climate resilience depend entirely on healthy marine ecosystems. When land is reclaimed, there are changes on how the water moves. Science shows that restricting this flow leads to 1. Stagnant water and pollution build-up, creation of dead zones with low oxygen, hypoxia, and lastly, the destruction of fish spawning grounds and migration routes. If reclamation projects blocks natural water circulation, it does not just cause a local problem. It can trigger a 30% to 70% drop in water flushing efficiency, leading to fish kills and total ecosystem failure. As such, the Bureau respectfully recommends the following. As to Section 2, Declaration of Policy, the policy should explicitly mention the precautionary principles and the polluter pays principle. This is to cover the protection of spawning grounds, migration routes, and the rights of those who rely on the waters for their living. As to Section 3, purpose, the current draft focuses mostly on weed. We recommend explaining this to include the maintenance of natural hydrologic and ecological functions. As to Section 4, key definitions, the following terms may be included. 1. The tidal prism and hydrodynamic modeling using math and physics to ensure water actually moves rather than just sitting still. 2. Waterway channel, redefining this as scientifically determined space rather than just a 200-meter gap. As to Section 7, penalties, the fine should be proportional to the scale of the project and damage caused. The following are also recommended. Mandatory rehabilitation, the developer must fix what they damaged. 2. Compensation, there must direct compensation and support to those whose livelihoods are disrupted, particularly the fisher folk. Currently, we have 2.7 million fisher folk across the country, and this is the mainly displaced sector with regards to reclamation, whether legal or illegal. So dapat po may equivalent compensation, not just once but maybe sustainable livelihood to compensate their dignity in their lifetime. And third, blacklisting. This is to prevent some offenders from getting future permits. Lastly, as the government agency that has the responsibility and jurisdiction in the management, conservation, development, protection, utilization, and disposition of all fisheries and aquatic resources of the country, this Bureau respectfully asserts that the proposed bill must prioritize the protection of the fisheries and aquatic resources. That reclamation must never compromise the rights of the country's fisher folk, and that safeguards must be proactive and preventive rather than reactive. In sum, water circulation is the lifeblood of our coast. Any project that chokes off this flow threatens national food security. While this Bureau supports the proposed bill, it requests that committee adopts the following recommendations to ensure that bill will be scientifically sound and socially just. And for the additional comments, we fully agree to the earlier concern of the PRA with regards to 200-meter channel and on the seawall. The Bureau also sits on the regular member of the MMT in Pasay, Bacoor, and waterfront reclamation. We noticed this experience on SM reclamation project. Since wala pa pong standard na water channel, nagkaroon po ng technical difficulties. Nagtambak na yung SM ng ilang hectares na sand. Then, sa decision po ng technical conference, pinaulit at niremove yung sand na yun. So, additional cost doon sa proponents plus additional damage doon sa ecosystem. And yung seawall po, I fully agree talaga na wala siyang scientific basis. Hindi siya nakakatulong sa flooding. Plus, nasisira niya yung ecosystem, mangrove, seagrass, and corals. Marami na po tayong mga LGUs na napansin kasi naglibot tayo sa across the country. Hinarangan po nila yung mangrove at eventually yung mangrove namamatay. Meron po tayo experience sa Higakit, Surigao, plus sa Southern Leyte. Pag nag-establish po ng seawall, patay po talaga yung mangrove na tutuyo at wala kasi yung flushing, walang transport of nutrients. So, patay po yung ecosystem. That's all, Honorable Chair and members.
Thank you, Before. I'd like to move on to representative or resource person from the Department of Interior and Local Government.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm Jed Castillo from representing Director Ana Bonagua of the DILG Bureau of Local Government Development. So for the DILG, sir, we are supportive of the proposed bill. Now, however, with regards to the technical inputs, we would defer to the recommendations of the concerned agencies with direct mandates and expertise on the matter, such as the PRA and the DNR, among others. Nonetheless, as we seen in the bill that there are responsibilities provided under the local government units, the DILG may provide the necessary assistance and support to the lead agencies in monitoring LGU compliance on the related provisions of the proposed measure. So we also would like to note that as presented din po ng ating PRA representative earlier, as part of the pre-qualification legal requirements for the processing of reclamation projects, council resolutions from concerned LGUs expressing no objection to the proposed reclamation projects are required. So to further support the intention of the proposed measure, the LGU shall take into consideration the requirements of the bill, of the proposed measure, in the issuance of said resolution for relevant reclamation projects. So with that, Mr. Chair, we will submit our official position on the matter to take into consideration the request from the Honorable Congressman related to Section 6 of the proposed bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Congressman Ryan.
thank you. Mr. Chair, just to respond to BFAR earlier, the two principles that you mentioned, if we could have that in writing before the next TWG so we can study the wording, that would be great. Regarding the mandatory rehabilitation as well as the livelihood compensation, while these are both very valid, it may not necessarily be germane to this bill in particular, because it also touches on PRA as a whole, the land reclamation as a whole, not necessarily specific to the waterway project, unless the waterway development directly affects the livelihood of fisher folk or directly affects the environment. But the spirit of the bill is that the DENR and other agencies would be able to make sure that the installation of a waterway would not affect, for example, the livelihood of the fisher folk or the environmental aspect. However, you do bring up a very valid point about both, that there is a problem in terms of the environment being affected by not just land reclamation, but other infrastructure projects such as seawall, flood mitigation, etc., as well as the livelihood being affected by commercial development. No, both these, I believe, could exist as separate bills, which may be referred to separate committees actually. So what I can commit to BFAR, because I work closely with BFAR, especially in Pangasinan for our fisher folk there, we'll work on this. If there is no existing law for both of these provisions, we will file the bills to protect our fisher folk and the ecology. All right? So thank you.
Thank you. We go now to the Environmental Impact Assessment Representative.
Good morning to the honorable members of the committee. From the point of view of the Environmental Impact Assessment and Management Division, we are in support of this bill. However, we would like to suggest, Your Honor, if we can invite also the Philippine Navy, because they are the ones giving the law, I believe. And one of the requirements is about the introduction of this, just like this waterways. Okay. So also, if we would like to be clarified also regarding your bill about the Section 6 under the DNR, conducts regular inspections, because we have the monitoring arms that the establishment of the MMT, or multi-parted monitoring team, and also our regional office. Also, we are included also the MB Central Office. However, we'd like to be clarified regarding the mandatory conduct of the EIA every 5 years, because once we issue the ECC for the lifetime of the project, that ECC exists. Does that mean that they are going to conduct every 5 years another EIA?
Full EIA.
So, full EIA? Okay. So we would like to be clarified on that, Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond.
Congressman Bryan.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I'm very familiar with the fact that you already have your regulatory processes in place, no? But I would like to request your position paper on how you would like this to be incorporated into the existing regulatory framework. If it would be necessary to do additional inspections or just include it in the already existing inspections as another check on the list. No, so I appreciate that.
We'll just submit our position paper regarding this, Your Honor. Thank you.
We move on, then we go to representative from Palawan Council of Sustainable Development.
Good morning,
Good morning, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. On behalf of the PCSD staff, our Executive Director, Attorney Teodoro Jose S. Mata, we thank the committee for this opportunity to share our position, and we commend the intent of the proposed bill. But for the province of Palawan, however, we respectfully emphasize that reclamation and coastal modification projects operate within a special legal framework established under Republic Act 7611 or the Strategic Environmental Plan for Palawan Act. And under this law, Palawan is governed by the what we call the Environmentally Critical Areas Network, or ECAN, or what was mentioned by my colleagues, Reach to Reef approach. Projects that may significantly affect the environment require prior SEP clearance before implementation. So in our province, this is a precondition to the issuance of the ECC. In other words, before an ECC can be issued by DENR in the province of Palawan, the proponent has to get SEP clearance from the council. Land reclamation projects, by their nature, affect foreshore areas, marine waters, mangroves, and coastal ecosystems, and many of which will fall under ECAN zones. And in this regard, we respectfully raise 3 points for the committee's consideration. First, we recommend that the bill expressly recognize the continuing applicability of the SEP law in our province. Second, we respectfully suggest the inclusion of the Council, or the PCSD, among the agencies involved in compliance and enforcement for projects within Palawan, consistent with its statutory mandate. And lastly, I subscribe to the suggestion of our good colleague from PRA that each area has its own peculiarity. There should be careful study of hydrodynamic behavior of the area, coastal morphology, and that while the proposed 200-meter standard is a valuable baseline safeguard, Palawan's coastal ecosystem are highly diverse and ecologically sensitive. So implementation should be harmonized with our ECAN and supported by site-specific scientific assessment. So in closing, the PCSD staff supports the environmental objectives of this bill, but we simply seek to ensure that the national legislation harmonizes and strengthen the Palawan Special Environmental Governance Framework, which is the SEP law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We go now to the resource person from the Department of Economy, Planning and Development.
Mr. Chair, members of the Special Committee, good morning. My name is Jerome Similiano from the Department of Economy, Planning and Development. In general, DepDev welcomes the proposed bill's intent to mitigate flooding by ensuring the pathways for floodwaters permit adequate hydraulic discharge flow rate to drain the basin. As previously mentioned by the previous resource persons, a fixed minimum width for waterways may help mitigate floods in some cases, but is not optimal for majority cases because water channel width alone does not determine the hydraulic discharge capacity required to drain the floodwaters. Depth of the pathways as well as smoothness of the inner contours of the pathways also impacts hydraulic performance. These parameters are site-specific, such that 200-meter pathway width is sufficient to some sites, but may be excessive or inadequate for others. Other local hydraulic conditions interact with pathway geometry to cumulatively impact the overall hydraulic discharge flow rate. To tighten the technical aspects of hydraulic flow rates and flooding, we recommend consulting with the Department of Public Works and Highways. The DPWH is currently updating their 2015 design guidelines, criteria, and standards with assistance from the Japan International Cooperation Agency, to incorporate coastal resiliency, recognizing the increased incidence of coastal flooding in many coastal areas across the Philippines. Incorporating these updated technical standards ensures that the waterway requirements are grounded in the latest evidence-based engineering and coastal resiliency framework. Hydraulic modeling is a specialized field, and therefore the government must be able to monitor the hydraulic performance on all projects, including land reclamation. Under the existing environmental impact system, continuous monitoring of project impacts on the environment was the environmental impact statement requires continuous monitoring of impacts on projects on the environment. Hydraulic performance could be included as a monitored parameter under the EIS systems, but may not be currently required for all projects. Another aspect that the bill can explore is ensuring that the government has adequate capabilities to implement the EIS system in a manner that drives measurable outcomes rather than mere procedural compliance. DepDev supports also the creation of the Department of Water Resources, which is envisioned to lead the integration of national water resource planning and management, including flood risk management, integrated coastal zone management. Should the DWR be created, it will have the responsibility of ensuring that the government has sufficient capability to monitor hydraulic performance of different river basins and mitigate flood risks. Additionally, for Section 3 and 4, we suggest that alternative configurations may be permitted if they demonstrate equal or superior performance in tidal exchange and residence times based on hydrodynamic modeling. All modeling assumptions and results must be disclosed to the DPWH, DENR, and relevant stakeholders to ensure transparency and scientifically informed review process. We also suggest that the bill incorporate the DENR Water Resources Management Office, established under Executive Order Number 22, Series of 2023, mandated to evaluate the credibility of hydraulic models used in designing land reclamation projects. We also suggest coordinating with the University of the Philippines National Hydraulic Research Center as an external validator of hydraulic models and monitor reports prepared under this bill. Regarding Section 6, compliance and enforcement, we suggest that references to NEDA be changed to the Department of Economy, Planning and Development pursuant to Republic Act Number 12145 or the Economy, Planning and Development Act. Nomenclature aside, we recommend removing DepDev among the named agencies under this section. While DepDev reviews project proposals, its primary mandate under RA 12145 is to vet the overall economic viability and strategic value of national projects. Vetting physical compliance with the specific waterway dimensions mandated by the bill is a specialized engineering undertaking which falls outside the department's primary mandate. This responsibility is more appropriately be handled by the designated regulatory and engineering authorities such as the PRA and the DPWH. All these comments will be transmitted to the committee later once the Secretary signed the position paper. Thank you.
Okay, May I know if there are research persons na not listed here? So wala na yata. So, mayroon. From what office?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. From Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Soils and Water Management.
Can you make your presentation?
Yes po. On behalf of Department of Agriculture and Bureau of Soils and Water Management Director, Dr. Gina Pinilo, I'm Ms. Regine Sabornido po. And allow me to read the department's position on House Bill 2768. So, the Department of Agriculture supports the objective of ensuring sufficient waterway channel in reclamation project, provided that the following safeguards are strictly observed. Number one is the protection of prime agricultural land. No waterway channel or reclamation project shall not encroach the network of protected areas for agriculture and agro-industrial development, or NAPAAD, and Strategic Agriculture and Fisheries Development Zone, or SAFDC, and it shall not affect the irrigated and irrigable lands, or disrupt the irrigation system, impair the alluvial plainlands that are highly suitable for agriculture, and convert non-negotiable lands under Section 9 of RA 8435, Section 9 of RA 8435 series of 1997. And related to this, it shall seek the technical assistance from Department of Agriculture prior to the approval of any reclamation project involving waterways or related infrastructure, the following technical verification and coordination with the Department of Agriculture. So it shall be undertaken by the determination of the ABSWM on whether the proposed areas falls under the NAPAAD and SAFDC, and also identification and verification of the presence of irrigable lands within the project area, and also actual conduct of the BSWM of soil and water testing, technical assessment, including analysis and soil evaluation to determine the potential impact of the proposed project on irrigation system, water quality, soil fertility, salinity levels, agricultural productivity, and overall land suitability. And lastly, it shall technical assistance shall be seek to have compliance with Department of Agriculture Memorandum Circular 26 series of 2022 in relation to the issuance of DA certification and adherence to existing guidelines governing land use reclassification and protection of prime agricultural land. Then we should have also consider po yung increasing threats po of climate change, rising sea level, saltwater intrusion, and flooding po sa agricultural lands. With that, the Department of Agriculture respectfully recommends the House Bill number 2768 to include explicit provision that recognize the NAPAAD and SAFDC as protected agricultural zone stated in RA 8435 of 1997, prohibit reclamation or waterway development affecting irrigated and irrigable lands, require mandatory DA certification prior to project approval, and mandate interagency coordination among DA and other related agencies and offices, and provide penalties for violation of agricultural land protection laws. With that, the DA firms stand firm in its mandate to protect irrigated lands, irrigable lands with firm funding commitments, the NAPAAD and SAFDC fishery areas, and ecologically fragile agricultural land from conversion, reclassification, or impairment may be arising from reclamation activities. So with that po, we will submit the official position paper to the committee once signed po. Thank you.
Thank you. Congressman Franz.
Thank you, Chair. Just after hearing everything, all the position papers and opinions, I just have two very quick technical clarifications. So first to Engineer Destura from the PRA. So Engineer, also we already mentioned this, you gave a heads up earlier that this would be very technical, but after hearing so many mentions of the hydrodynamic modeling from you, from the other agencies, I'm very curious. Based on the IRR, Admin Issuance 2019-04, this states that is it your agency which conducts the hydrodynamic modeling for
sir,
reclamation areas?
Sir, it's one of the mandatory requirements under the ZIRR, sir, for the approval of a reclamation proposal.
Yeah, so it is conducted before the results are just submitted to you for your approval.
Yeah, by the private sector themselves, sir.
Would you have any idea on how the private sector normally conducts these hydrodynamic models? Do they outsource it? Do they contract third parties for it? Or
sir, a very highly specialized skill.
Yes.
Using technology programs. It is basically simulating the attributes of a locality. And then their questions are asked about how, in particular, for reclamation projects, how does the reclamation impacts on...
I see. So in a nutshell, it's just how the reclamation affects the waterways or the waters around that particular reclamation area when it will be built.
Yes,
in that
sir.
case, do you have any particular standards, sufficient standards, or particular international, I don't know, ISOs that will that you would consider before validating or approving the hydrodynamic model?
Actually, sir, it's the result, the bottom line of the study, insofar as our mandate is concerned, is how does the result of the hydrodynamic modeling is compared with the final platform elevation of the reclaimed land. Because we impose a positive +4 meter above mean lower low water elevation as the finished grade line of, among other things, sir.
I see.
But the major consideration is gaano kataas yung result ng hydrodynamic modeling compared with the platform, because
hence Engineer Olavides is example of the bathtub, that it rises when you put something inside and then it'll rise, it'll elevate the water levels. Just going back, wanting to highlight the ratio or the reason why Congressman Ryan wanted to do this is just to prevent flooding. Personally, I'm just surprised that also you did mention that a lot of reclamation areas are illegal or did not go through the PRA. That's why it was not properly regulated or was not properly examined after they were done. Perhaps we could provide, considering also the comments of the other agencies who highlighted not only the technical aspect of the raising of the water levels, but also the environmental impact, the effect on wildlife and the coastal communities, which I'm sure are already part and parcel of the approval of the PRA when you do it legally. But at the same time, perhaps we could explore how these other aspects, other factors, when we do on through the hydrodynamic modeling. And in that case, what I'm saying is perhaps we could have a comprehensive model or standard which we could apply before the PRA would approve prospective applications for reclamations.
Yes, sir.
In line with Congressman Brian's reasons for this bill. And then we'll just discuss some of the other more technical aspects, like you said. I think ako naman po not sure, but I think definitely we might have to do a TWG on this. But let's just thresh out the rest of the other, how we can marry the provisions of this with some of the existing provisions of reclamation projects. And then, thank you, Engineer. And then for my last question, perhaps directed to my fellow UP alum Dean Ognay and perhaps kay Mr. Pat of DOC Pag-asa. I was really surprised that although I'm not familiar with the studies on reclamation projects in particular and how they are how waterways are affected by doing reclamation projects, but have we conducted specific local studies or academic research, any studies related to our local reclamation projects and their effects, especially since some of these reclamation projects, especially the large scale ones, have been have been done for so many decades or years now, and perhaps from an environmental or a technical or again in the flood waterway perspectives. Dean.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. We have studies, no? These are studies conducted even by other units of the University of the Philippines, and we have also conducted consultations on reclamation projects, especially with our accredited professional organization, no? The Philippine Institute of Environmental Planners, when we did a consultation, I think 2 years ago, and we produced this documentation on the benefits actually and the downside of reclamation projects, which can be a source of potential recommendations that we can input to the bill.
Sige, thank you, Dean. How about you, Mr. Pat? Meron po bang studies?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the part of PAGASA po, we haven't been doing such studies, although recently, maybe over the past few months, we had been invited by the City of Manila and other partners regarding the reclamation activities there. And we are doing some partnership with them, like providing data as embodied a while ago by the position paper from the UST. So we provide rainfall intensities, and yeah, we also do hydrodynamic modeling because we are into flood forecasting and early warning for major river basins. That's all, Your Honor.
Offhand, Mr. Pat, just a quick question. So, based on your data, I don't know, from satellites or surveillance images, after reclamations have been put into, for example, in Paranaque or Pasay, which were the basis of some of Kong Ryan's provisions, was there a noticeable rise in flood levels when after the reclamation was done?
Pardon me, Your Honor, but we haven't done studies yet about that.
Okay, sir. All right. In that case, perhaps I would like to make a motion for Dean's existing studies, if you have. Please kindly submit or just prepare them, relevant studies, and for the TWG and to Sir Pat's division, if perhaps we could, I would like to make a suggestion, if we could perhaps use that also. If you could get data, especially in recent years, just surface level data on the how flood prone the areas around reclamation areas are, especially here in NCR, just to have a further, more comprehensive analysis on how we can address such the reason for this bill. Okay, thank you, Sir Pat.
Yes,
with that, Mr. Chair, thank you for the time. No more questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kong Franz. Wala na yata ang kuhan. So, salamat, no? Maraming salamat sa lahat ng mga resource persons for your attendance today. I would just like to remind you to please submit through the COMSEC all of your position papers. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we end that...
Yes, Congressman Franz.
Before we end, I'd also like to make a motion for the creation of a technical working group to further discuss this bill by Congressman Brian.
I second the motion.
There's a motion to create a technical working group, and it has been seconded. There being no objection, the CM is hereby approved.
Mr. Chair, if there are no more any comments or anything in our agenda, I would like to make our most favorite motion, which is the motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
I second the motion.
There's a motion to adjourn. So there being no objection, the same is hereby approved. Again, many thanks to all of you. Okay.
Para mapukpok ni Chair yung mga provisions. Next week.